This is week 21 of posting videos every week until the whole world can type at the speed of thought. Today we're going to talk about three-dimensional typing and demonstrate the Masterforge for the first time ever. Let's go! This is a one-dimensional keyboard switch, and pretty much every keyboard ever created uses one of these. Some of them come in different colors. Some of them come in different sizes. Some of them sound different. Some of them are optical, some are mechanical, some have a membrane, some have different levels of actuation forces. But at the end of the day, all of these switches have one thing in common. They're activated by pushing the switch down in one dimension and deactivated by lifting your finger off in that same dimension. Okay, well, when QWERTY was invented, when the typewriter was invented, that was an incredible feat of engineering. But because that was 150 years ago, just for a thought experiment, let's think about, okay, what if there was a better way to do it? What if instead of a one-dimensional switch, we had a three-dimensional switch? So instead of just detecting motion in the z-axis, what if it could also detect motion in the x-axis and then also in the y-axis? What would it feel like to type in 3D? So some people, when they're first introduced to this concept, they think, oh, so is it like typing on an analog stick? Well, let's break that down. Why would you not want to type on an analog stick? For starters, the travel distance is very large compared to a keyboard switch. But more importantly, this is designed to output a range of values rather than discrete values. So there's no haptic feedback, which is very important when it comes to typing. But yeah, if we had maybe a more compact version of an analog stick that wasn't actually outputting analog, but rather was outputting digital and very clearly with very subtle movements was articulating to the user when something is pressed and when something is released, then yeah, we might be onto something. So I'm going to do a detailed breakdown and demonstration of three-dimensional typing today on these two devices. On the left here, we have the Camcorder 1, and then on the right, we have the Masterforge. This is actually the first demonstration of a Masterforge on video ever, so for that reason alone, this is a very special video. But before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about these kind of clickbaity style articles that maybe you've seen circulating, because I mean, while it's great that people are talking about, yes, how fast you can go on a camcorder and seeing videos, people hitting just 500 words per minute or 300 words per minute or whatever insane speeds, it's cool, it's great. But I think that when you only talk about how fast it is and you really just focus on the fact that it is chording enabled, I think you sort of lose a little bit of the essence, and it does sort of a disservice to what the product actually is, because of people that are so focused on the chording and are so focused on the speed, people are thinking, oh, this is like the next generation of stenography or like new and improved stenography. And no, that's not really what it is. The reality is this is a lot closer to the keyboard on your desk than it is to a Wordstone Ireland steno machine. And even without chording, like objectively, there are so many advantages to this over a normal keyboard that a lot of people don't understand because they just look at the numbers and they look at the speeds that are possible. I'm probably just as guilty of this as anyone else because I love chording and I post a lot of chording related content. But when it comes down to it, as much as I think typing fast is cool, this is so much more than just typing fast. So today I'm going to slow things down. I'm going to put myself in the perspective of somebody who just took a device out of the box for the first time, put it on their desk, knows nothing about it, and says, okay, now what? Because this is a lot easier to learn and a lot more approachable than a lot of people think that it is. So for starters, you can use either of these devices with any typing tutor software in existence, any typing game you might find online or I don't know if you still have the old Mavis Beacon CD-ROM lying around. That's fine. It's totally compatible. And you don't need any software on your computer in order to be able to use this. All the intelligence and stuff is built in, so you just plug it into your computer like you would any other keyboard. This web app that we'll be using today is called .io. I'll put it in the video description. That's free, it's open source, and I've cleared the history in my browser so that it is as if it's my first time visiting the site. So basically the idea is that rather than just slapping a number on someone and saying, this is how fast you are in words per minute, which I personally think is a pretty outdated and poor metric for measuring human-computer interaction, there are 6 multivariate metrics here, which can sort of build out more of a HCI personality profile rather than just making somebody a number. And the first module up here at the top is called CPM training. And there's 3 tiers within this module. The first of which is going to just give us randomly generated letters, which is great for learning a new layout. When you expand the statistics bar on the side here, you can see all the different letters here, and then as I type them, it's going to start with a very limited number of sets, and after a certain number of them, these highlighted ones are hit at a certain speed, it'll start to substitute in new letters as well. So it'll only progress once you've hit a certain speed. But let me open up the virtual device here. So here's the camcorder 1. Let me readjust the screen. So here's the virtual device displayed below, and it's just going to show me which quadrant to press which of the 3D switches, and it's going to just keep feeding you these letters at a certain recursion rate until you've been able to reinforce them enough to reach the speed to where new letters will be subbed into their place. So it's going to start with the most common letters in the English language, and I'll press the T by moving this finger in this quadrant downwards towards me. Very subtle movement. If you blink, you might have missed it. And then the U is going to be my left ring finger downwards. And I'll lift my hand so you can kind of see it here. Then E is also going to be my index finger downwards towards me. O will be my middle finger, and so on and so forth. Just like you would be learning how to type on a normal keyboard. Right now it's just the home row, and it's all keys moving in the same direction. So it's very, very easy. And even if you're an experienced user, typing gibberish like this is kind of hard. Our brains are really used to processing text in words, which is why typing just random stuff like this actually is very challenging. You will not be able to reach anywhere near the speeds that you would typing non-gibberish text. So after typing some more, I've had over 50% of the letters introduced, which means that I've almost graduated away from this tier, thank goodness. One thing to keep in mind is that while you can show the virtual device below, while you're trying to learn a new layout, I would not recommend it. I just have it up to help you guys understand what all is going on here. But you can cheat if you only are looking at this rather than at the letters. You're not building that association in your brain that's important if you're trying to memorize a new layout. All right, so I was able to graduate from the letters tier in just a couple minutes, but keep in mind that's because I'm experienced with the device. So basically I just had to reach the calibration threshold for each of those terms. You can skip ahead whenever you want, but for somebody who's brand new to the device, it might take you several days or even like a week to get through just the letters tier and move on to what's called the Trigrams tier. Now that I'm typing these common letter groupings, it feels a lot more natural. Because of course I've already built muscle memory for typing these things over time, so it feels really cool just to have my fingers rolling across the keys, barely even have to think about it. it's almost like a burst fire now rather than like hesitating between every press. And this muscle memory is a lot more important and more useful to build than typing random letters in a random order. Yeah, typing trigrams is already so much better than typing randomly generated letters. Although whenever I come across a trigram that's a word like and or she or out or something like that, I have to really stop myself from chording it because I've already built that muscle memory for chording it, and my brain just wants to like take that shortcut. There's a thing that our community calls the forced chord phenomenon, which basically means once you've started to chord something, like going back to typing it one letter at a time just feels wrong. Like imagine if we were to have this whole conversation. There's another one, all. I can't, like I really want to chord it. But imagine if instead of talking in words to you right now, if I was talking to you one letter at a time, like that's how it feels. That's how wrong it feels to type one letter at a time in those instances. So one thing that's also pretty cool about these devices is whenever you have a word that has a duplicate letter, you can do what's called the dupe key, where, or I'll do it slower when we get to the next one down here. But essentially, rather than having to press a button, then release the button, then press it again, you can press it while the first one is still pressed, and it'll just duplicate whatever the last letter pressed was. So in normal typing, whenever you get a duplicate letter like that, it's slower. Like think about whenever I'm typing I on, probably I is still pressed whenever I hit the N. It's like a burst fire. Like you don't have to release everything before you press the next thing. And also here, like I and O are on the same key. I can roll around in a single motion, which is pretty satisfying and is also faster. Same with A and T. There's a lot of common diagrams, E and R right here, V, E, R, roll around, that feels really nice to do. Coming up on that second dupe key. And so yeah, I said I was going to do it slower, right? E, S, duplicate key right here. So E, S, duplicate. Don't worry about your speed when you're doing this exercise. The whole point is to start chunking these different blocks of common letters together in your head. So take as much time as you need between every trigram, but just make sure whenever you are ready to type that trigram that you're doing all the letters at once. Well, not at once, you're not chording yet, but you're doing it in a fluid motion still, so that you're not like thinking about every individual letter. You don't want to get stuck in the middle of a word when you're doing this exercise. Now we've made it beyond the trigrams tier. We're in the words tier, where we'll be just typing, common words, just like you might do in a lot of other online typing tests. But similar to the previous tiers, it's going to be feeding you words based on what you're the slowest at, and it's going to limit the number of words that can appear so that you have an ideal, like, intermittent reinforcement of these words. So this is really challenging not to chord because these are common words, I have chords for every single thing here. So I really want to chord everything that I type. And even whenever I have like for and the next to each other, I want to do a chord for both of those things together, like phrasing and is the, like. But I think it's good still to practice even when you've already built the muscle memory for chords. And it's still fun. To close things out, we're going to do a typing test. This is going to be the same words as the words tier, but rather than perpetual learning, it's going to limit us to 25 words, and we're just going to see how fast we can type them. Let's go. There you have it. 91 words per minute is the official score of the first ever typing test taken on a MasterForge device, with the caveat being that is no chording allowed, character entry only. I'm pretty happy with that. I certainly don't think it's super impressive or anything, but I'm happy with it, I guess, because I think it will help people understand how achievable those types of speeds are for anyone. Like, I know there's plenty of Caracorder 1 users that without chording can already type faster than that. And I think it will help people understand that you don't have to be a super genius to learn how to use this thing. In fact, it's recommended before you start doing any chording at all that you get a really solid foundation in this type of character entry. This type of input device is not just about hitting insane words per minute. I mean, I code on this thing every day. I've got some cool gaming demos coming up I'm going to show you guys. It is a total keyboard replacement, and it is the whole point of the name Caracorder is that it's a combination of character and chord. Both of those things are equally important, and neither of those things should be prioritized one over the other, but rather they should be working together in harmony. And there's a bunch of new updates that I just wasn't able to fit inside this video, so you're gonna have to come back next week. If you haven't already pre-ordered your MasterForge, you can do that at forgekeyboard.com. The MasterForge bundle's right here, and this is going to be going down once the Kickstarter launches shortly here. This may be your final warning on that. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I hope to catch you next time.